Are you recording? Okay, hello. Would you please start by introducing yourself?
Yes, of course. I am Mrs. Rossi, and I am the GT coordinator and teacher at HSE. I also teach high school physics here, so those are my kind of two roles.
Okay, so right now we're gonna just be starting with the questions. Are you ready?
Yes,
Okay, here's the first question. When COVID happened, how did you feel about the situation?
that's a very good question. At first, I think I was kind of just in disbelief, like I didn't really think it was real. Because we live in Austin, obviously, and it happened right around when there's usually a really big event called South by Southwest, which I usually love going to. So it was a very big deal that the mayor like canceled it, and that was kind of like jarring for me. Like, wow, this must be really serious. Um, but I didn't really think about the scope of things until just everything was shut down.
That's pretty big. Okay, and here's the next question. How did it affect you or your family?
Um, Actually, it was kind of like good and bad. I had just given birth in November. So for me, it in a way, it was like a blessing in disguise because I was able to stay home with my newborn baby. Kind of had like an extended maternity leave, but in a good way because we were working from home. So I still kind of had like a mental escape sometimes. I think I was very overwhelmed with being a mother. Like he was my first baby. It was my first time being a mom. And I was very overwhelmed in the beginning. So I kind of welcome having work to do. But it was nice to be able to work from home so I could still be with him since he was so new. And I really enjoyed getting to kind of stay home with him for basically his whole first year of life, before having to really come back to work consistently, um, which I think made a really big difference in his upbringing. So that was really exciting for me. I think the downside is just I really struggle with, I don't know if kids are learning. It's so hard to tell on a computer. I think by default, we as teachers just try to give them more work. Like, oh, if I just keep assigning them something, then they'll be learning. But I can't honestly say whether or not, one, I know my students, which is usually my favorite part of being the teacher. Being a teacher is just getting to know all of these bright future, scientists and doctors and lawyers, and just, I feel like one of the perks of our small school is that all the teachers really get to know the students. And I feel like I missed out on that. And it is my favorite part of being a teacher.
Well, that's very nice that you really do care personally about the students. And that also comes with another question. How hard is it to work on Zoom or whatever you use to communicate with the students?
Yes, it's definitely challenging. With the Zoom, I definitely feel like I have Zoom fatigue. I read a study that says that it is a lot harder to teach or interact on Zoom because normally when you talk to someone in person, you only look at the person. But on Zoom, you are looking at yourself, and that is extra like brain taxing on your brain and like leads to Zoom fatigue, which I found interesting. So definitely think that. I also think like we have so much technology like a Guardian and Schoology and all these ways to try to make virtual learning successful, but we were introduced to them in such a short amount of time. So we had to learn all these ways to try to teach, but then we never really got a chance to practice and get good at using the technology. So I think that's hard. And I think the last component that makes it challenging is in person, I can easily like stand next to the student, make sure they're doing their work, kind of more easily encourage them. But here on Zoom, especially if their cameras are like, well, at the ceiling, I have no idea if they're there, if they're asleep. It's really hard to make sure they're learning, to make sure to encourage them to interact, because for them, I'm just a face on the computer.
Do you really think that right now being a teacher is hard?
Oh, for sure. I've always thought teaching was hard. But this year has definitely been my most challenging year um, to date, for sure.
So, how many students do you see at the school, if there are any?
Like actual on campus students, or like
Yes.
how many do I teach? On campus, I think we have a total of about 50 students spread out between 6th through 12th grade. Mostly middle school. I think we have like of the 50, maybe like 40 are middle school and just 10 are high school students.
It's very small numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you wish to have like changed in the school to ensure the safety of teachers and students to help bring more students in?
That's a good question. I do feel very hopeful with the vaccine. I was fortunate enough to get it back in April. And I think that has eased a large part of my mind just being on campus now. I feel like it's easier to collaborate with my coworkers and my other teachers, which is really who I work closely with, because the students on campus, they're still doing their classes through Zoom. So we don't really interact as much. But I think that the vaccine is probably going to be the biggest step, especially now that the CDC has approved it for kids as young as 12. So that is the majority of our school population. And if, I hope like parents feel safe having their kids get vaccinated. I hope kids feel safe about it. I don't think I'm a zombie yet, but and I got it a month ago. So far, so good. But yeah, I definitely think that's going to be a big game changer. I think on campus, they are doing a really good job with checking your temperature when you come in through the front door or through the gym. We have hand sanitizer everywhere. Everything is touchless. They just remodeled the bathrooms, so you don't actually have to turn on the sinks and anything to spread germs. It's all automated. We have water bottle dispensers, so you're not sharing germs in the water fountain. So I think all of those are actually just positive changes in general. Even it hopefully, as COVID is not as big of an issue anymore, but just to keep the school clean and safe, just moving on in the future.
Well, that sounds very nice. Now it means that I can get the vaccine because I turned 12. So
Oh, yay.
that'd be pretty nice. So this also comes to our next question. How would you feel if every student and teacher would be able to come back the fall that's coming?
I would love this, honestly. I didn't think I would love it in the beginning. I was getting real used to being in my pajamas all day and teaching from home, and I was loving it. But since I've been back on campus, I would say that I feel so disheartened seeing these kids just in front of the computer all day, and just I don't think they're motivated. They're just very, I think they're very disheartened about learning, and I am very excited for them to come back, because I think learning should be fun. And especially as a science teacher, there's so much hands-on labs and activities, and all the kids are missing out because, I try to get people move in on the Zoom, like everyone stand up, but nobody does it. So it loses out a lot of the effectiveness of just really learning not only with your mind, but just getting your whole body into it.
All right, it's very nice to know that you really, really do truly want the students to come back and to have more fun interaction with them. And that also comes with the next question I have. What do you think about like only letting the students that only have the COVID vaccine into campus?
That is a very good question. I struggle with the answer to this one because personally, I would love that, just for my own peace of mind. But I recognize that it's a very controversial, it can be a very controversial topic in some households. And I'm not in every household to understand the reasons why or why not they want to get the vaccine. Um, I feel like because children are, well, actually, ages 12 and up are not necessarily a lower risk. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think I have a good answer. I think my hope would be yes. But it's more like my personal hope than something I think is the right answer.
Well, it's still nice to know what you think about it personally. And this is a very big question that I believe. What do you think is the hardest part of being in this pandemic that has actually happened to you?
The hardest part for me, as a new mom was sending my kid to daycare. I I really struggled with it. I cried about it. I was like, what kind of mother am I? I'm sending him out into like coronavirusville, because I had to come back to work, and he can't get vaccinated. So I think that was the biggest guilt. And the first time he got sick from daycare, I was just like, oh, like so like crazy and sad and just like besides myself. But he had like a common cold. Yes, other diseases are still out there. And it wasn't a big deal. And actually, I think daycare has been really great for him. He's learning a lot. He's building social skills. So I'm glad that I have been able to have some normalcy, because that's something you would do before without even giving a second thought, right? Like your kid goes to school, your kid goes to daycare. You're not worried that they're going to contract this viral disease, right? And so that I think was the hardest part emotionally for me. But now that he's in it, oh, and like a month into his daycare, there was a COVID outbreak at his daycare. So I was like, oh my gosh, am I the worst mother? Like, I just sent him to a school with COVID. But luckily he tested negative, because they do wear masks and, all the safety protocols. But I was just like, when I got that phone call, I just shut down. And that was a very sad moment for me. But luckily, it all worked out.
Well, that's very nice to hear that your son is still well. And thank you for having this time to interview. So I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Bye.
you.